see if I can get it. I did not pick up on either microphone. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Friends You Can Keep podcast. Our first episode being recorded in my car. Oh, God. Yeah. While driving. Yeah. Fun stuff. We're leaving my parents' house in Delaware, going home. It is the epitome of the sadness of leaving a vacation because, number one, we don't have our kids this weekend, and number two, it's actually nice out today.
It's warm.
It's warm, it's sunny.
52.
It's not 52 degrees, it's not snowing. There's not ungodly amounts of wind. But yeah, back to the real world. I didn't look at my phone, I should have. My notes app. I only have one written down to discuss. And that is not really a discussion, it's more an observation that I made. And that is the hilarity to me. I want to see, you probably don't have this experience at all. There are women I follow on Instagram who are actresses, some of them are wrestlers, but no matter what line of work they do, it's all the same. And I noticed a trend that I think is very funny in that they don't all, very few of them have like OnlyFans and shit. So it's not even a matter of they're doing it for that. There are a lot of them who post pictures of modeling photo shoots. A lot of bikini shots, a lot of butts, a lot of boobs, whatever. I then notice that once they have a significant other, you stop seeing this.
I do not ever see any of that.
Completely. And the reason I noticed it was because Soraya, who you would know as Paige, who used to wrestle with WWE, now wrestles in AEW, she was posting a lot of that stuff up, like her modeling stuff. Then she got in a relationship, never posted it again. And then I noticed the other day, she's like, oh, I've got a new modeling set coming out. And then like a day or two later, I saw something on Facebook about her and her boyfriend broke up. And I'm like, oh.
That's sad.
It was just the hilarity
Proof
to me.
that they're only posting that for like gross reasons.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the logic behind it. I don't know. But it's just funny to me that I did notice that you can look at a girl who posts stuff like that. You can look at the pattern of her Instagram and tell when she is in a relationship versus when she is not in a relationship.
Because if it's for like her professional whatever, like promotion, then her boyfriend has no say in that.
Well, what's funny to me is that, like, to use her as an example, they're modeling photos.
Right.
It's not an OnlyFans shoot. It's not like, oh, I'm doing porn now.
Or like it's not
it's
just
nothing,
a weird selfie.
Yeah, it's not like just here. I'm a
professional work.
I'm an Instagram hoe. Like,
and you're not like just she's not just an influencer. Like social media isn't her job.
Yeah.
Like these are, whatever she's doing it for, like a magazine or product or something. So what does your boyfriend matter?
Well, my thought was more like,
did he tell you not to?
That was more my thought. Is it a matter of you get in a relationship and you're doing these things, and then you have a conversation at some point, and it's like, I'm not really comfortable with you doing that anymore.
But like, didn't you know that she did that before?
But then the other question is,
or like, are you bored and that's why you post it, and then when you have a boyfriend, you're not bored anymore?
Or the other question is, are you continuing to do that while in a relationship and you're just not posting it to social media?
Or I would hope so if that's what you do for work.
But that's not her primary work, is my point.
Yeah, but I'm sure
her primary source of income is wrestling.
Yeah, but I'm sure it gives her a lot.
But that was more my thought. Like, if you're just doing modeling as like a side gig, when you get in a relationship, do you completely stop modeling altogether?
Maybe.
Or do you continue modeling and you just don't post it on Instagram?
Just seems, unless, like, do you do it to just fill your time because you're lonely or bored?
Because if it's a matter of, like,
I don't think it should be
the
like
beast that is Instagram and making money off being on social media and being a celebrity, and, like, you have to put up content, why is that the content you have to put up at that moment in time?
right. Like if you just.
Granted, we all know that gets traction and that gets views, but like.
But then, like when you have a boyfriend, if you're using that as income, why is he telling you like you can't do that anymore?
Yeah, or in general, because there's not more. At least from what I noticed, there's not more content in terms of like than them and their partner.
Right, it gets replaced.
Like it's not like here's more relationship content because I'm in a relationship now. It's just more. It's just less of the like risque content and more just like here's my everyday life. Which, like, if you're posting that, then why can't you just post that all the time? It's just your everyday life.
Right, yeah.
Why does it have to change?
Or it's like, is that how you find a boyfriend? It's like
Because there's a girl that I follow that she started out doing cosplay and now she's done interviews on red carpets and she's like moving her way up in the world of like nerd culture and stuff like that. She was posting stuff. Hers was never like lingerie and bikini photo shoots, but it's like a bit risque-er stuff in cosplay. And then all of a sudden, what they call soft launches that she has a boyfriend. And you stop seeing that stuff. And I'm like, I don't care. It's not going to make me unfollow you. But it's just really funny to me that, like, you have this mixture of regular content and, like, smuttier kind of content. And then all of a sudden you get a boyfriend and that just, like, whoosh.
Well, yeah. And like,
we're done with this.
What's
altogether.
your brand then? Like, you're going to have to pick a lane.
Because that could even be, like, I could have understood her more if, like, you're doing things that are a bit more professional now. So you fall back from that. But you're that was kind of almost like simultaneous. You're seeing more quote unquote professional stuff and that stuff still. And that this stuff doesn't stop until you've got a partner and you're in a relationship now.
I don't know. I don't think I follow anyone that would post anything even remotely. Like,
well, you don't follow near.
I don't think I follow any celebrities.
And that's basically all I follow.
Well, maybe. But I don't ever...
That cosplay girl falls more under, I think, an influencer. But...
Probably. Because... Well, I don't know. Do you get paid?
You can for, like, cosplay?
Yeah.
You can. There's definitely a business side to that. But
it's probably...
It starts with that. It starts where you're basically just an influencer. You're posting on social media, you get whatever following, and then you've got paid partnerships and sponsorships and whatever.
Right, and then you get paid to come to, like...
Yeah, then you're getting paid to go to Comic-Cons and all that kind of stuff. But, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I would still consider that in, like, the... It's a very niche...
I don't care for people.
But
I get really frustrated at some of the accounts that I've begun following because I'll get a reel that's funny, and then I'll see another one of their reels and a third one or whatever, and it's all funny. So I'll follow that account, and then like normal shit they post is not only not funny, some of it's just dumb. Or there was a couple that I followed that like. It was funny sort of relationship content. And then not that this matters, but like then all of a sudden there's a reel that it wasn't Victoria's Secret. She's some kind of model. And I'm like, when the fuck did this happen?
maybe always, and I don't know.
And like I said, doesn't matter. because they also still have funny stuff that they're putting out. But I'm like, this is just, I didn't know this is what this was.
There's a lot of them that are like that, where it's like, or especially, I don't watch Instagram reels, but like you'll see them on TikTok where like you see one, then when you go into their page, you're like, this is
It's a whole different thing.
Not what I
Yeah.
thought. Or they're all over the place. Like sometimes people have like a true crime, like a commentary on something that like a current one. So you think like, oh, maybe they do this a lot, and then it's like, no, there's some nut job that just is like a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, no, thank you.
I had one. She was a comedian. I think she still is. She's still a comedian. I followed her because of stuff that I kept seeing of her doing comedy, and it was funny. Now, she relentlessly, and I get it. I'm not saying you can't do this. I'm not trying to this is an issue, but her ex-boyfriend was not only like a cheater and this and that, he was like physically abusive, emotionally abusive, was gaslighting her all the time. It was this whole thing. It's an ongoing saga. He's got like other people stalking her social media. It's a whole thing. Since I started following her from seeing comedy stuff, everything she posts is about this.
Yeah.
And it is dramatic and it is depressing. And I'm like, one of them even said that she was like considering just quitting comedy. And I'm like, why did I start following?
There's a lot of those, and like sometimes I get the point is like awareness and to shed light on like this is really happening, but what are you getting out of like
what's the
having like 100 videos about this?
What's the end goal?
And like especially on TikTok, like you'll see a video where it's so vague. Well, and then you have to you go in the comments and people are asking questions, and then everyone's just like, don't you watch her content? No, I don't know who this person is.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of those things too.
Are you getting paid for this?
The girl I follow.
What are you hoping to do? Because you're not offering any. You don't ever offer like, oh, go here for resource. If you're in this situation,
it's just me telling my story
over and over and over again.
Yeah,
the same tidbits. Like we understand now, but like what's the point?
The girl I follow, she's got.
Or it's like 27 parts where like
she's got different stories where she is addressing like mostly dudes, of course, but people in her like commenting on her stuff about like you should just move on, like it's done, it's in the past, it's this, it's that, like all the range of like get over it kind of comments. But then that's the thought is like, I understand why you started this. But now you're addressing people that are telling you this, and it's like, oh, well, you're doing this for whatever. But what's the goal?
Like, if you're just trying to shed light, then, okay, you posted your videos.
Because
now
at some point...
you're going to have to get involved somehow else.
At some point, it's weird that you just keep talking about this relentlessly, and you're not posting about anything else except this past relationship. And it's like... it's never directed at someone, so you're not trying to like warn some specific the new girl that he's dating. But then it becomes a thing of like, is this really just you don't go to therapy and you just post all this shit in your Instagram stories?
Which, okay, if that's what's helping you, but like, is it helping?
But then if that's the case, then you can't really get mad at people in the comments that are like, I'm tired of watching this same thing for the past 3 months. Get over it.
People are, at some point you don't have to get over it is a horrible thing to tell someone. Like, you are going to need to move forward.
Correct. I agree with that. People were telling her that in the comments. And then my point was more like, if you're not doing anything to move forward, you can't then lash out at people who follow you, who, like me, I'm not commenting. So what's she saying?
Like, I'll never get over it?
No, it's just different. I forget what even half of it is. But, like, I'm not lashing out at her, but it's probably people like me that, oh, I saw reels of, or whatever, of you doing stand-up and followed you for that. And now here I am a month later and you're posting nothing but like the most depressing shit every day, multiple times a day. And it just becomes a thing of like, what are we doing? And it's never like, oh, I'm working through this. I'm doing, like, it's never like you said. It's never, you're bringing awareness. Here's this stuff. It's always just like the same thing. Or it's like updates of how there's dudes on her Instagram that know him that are stalking her and are like
then
harassing her.
Maybe you need to get off social media. Stop giving him access to you then. If he's coming after you and sending people after you.
Or get a different social media and stop.
Yeah.
Because the way that comes across is they're harassing you now because you post about him relentlessly. And like...
You gotta save yourself at this point.
And the guy she's posting about, I don't know who the fuck he is. So I don't know if he's also somebody, like, quote unquote, important.
Or like a...
And that's why... Like, if it's a situation of, like, Rosanna Pansino going after Mr. Beast, but I don't know who, like, she's had the guy's name up there. She's had pictures of him. I don't know who the fuck he is, which isn't saying much. I'm not really, he could be an influencer or whatever. I don't know. I'm not really deep
or like,
into that.
If you knew where she did comedy in that comedy circle, maybe.
I'm not deep into that lane of celebrity. But, like, is that why it's such a big deal? Because he's an influential person in some way? Like, I don't know.
At some point, you're going to need to stop relying on social media and either contact the authorities. If this is really such a big deal, why are you just yapping your mouth on the internet when, you know, you could go somewhere?
And what I was saying there, I don't think I got to the actual point. The way it's at least coming across is that she wasn't being harassed by these other dudes until she started posting relentlessly about him. Which, yes, it is not great. But also, like, if, again, your whole complaint is that he's sending dudes to harass you, then maybe either A, contact someone and do something about it, or B, stop relentlessly posting about this guy on Instagram.
There's a lot of accounts that are like that. Or like they're just telling stories like, oh, my sister's boyfriend or my brother-in-law, like, and they're always in like so many parts.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'm like, I don't know what we're doing here. Like, I know people like to hear it because it's that like juicy gossip is almost how it's like coming across.
Well, and it sort of falls into that.
Or like true crime.
It sort of falls into the true crime lane.
But then there's like so many of them where it's like, now it's just starting to make it seem like everything's just terrifying.
Because that's the big boom. True crime and all that kind of stuff is what's hot right now. So that's all the content people like that are making.
Yeah, it's all terrible. It's just all terrible.
And there's us.
The true crime category is just killing itself at this point.
Yeah.
The documentaries are so bad. They're so one-sided. Half the time, there's not even an end.
I've said that for years.
But it used to be there was an end. Now, it's like, oh, well, this case is ongoing.
Well, I said, Making a Murderer came out, and it was a slow build. And then all of a sudden, within the past, like, post-COVID.
Mm. It was even before that, because Tiger King really escalated it, too.
But that was during COVID.
Right at the beginning
But
of COVID.
I think COVID saw the rise of, like, your online sleuths. And, like, those people that do nothing but sit on the internet all day and try to solve these true crime stories.
Yeah.
And then what started to happen was everything that's ever happened anywhere that is a crime, well, we have to make a documentary about it.
Yeah, and sometimes...
Whether it's solved, whether it's not solved, whether it's ongoing, like... If it is a crime somewhere, we're going to make a documentary about it.
I also don't care for the dramatic reenactments that they're doing. They're even worse. I just watched
those have kind of died out.
they're hanging around. Some of them aren't bad.
You had that Renee Zellweger one.
That one was good.
You
the
had
thing
that-
about Pam.
You had that other one that was on the same, that was also on Peacock. About
Candy.
no, there was that one. I'm talking about the one
Jessica Biel.
with the Mormons. Where the dad jerks that guy off or whatever.
Paranoid. No. Abducted in Plain Sight.
Abducted in Plain Sight. They did a series on that. The Staircase. Which I still want to watch.
I don't, because that
I only want to watch it because it's Toni Collette and Colin Firth.
but like that case is so stupid.
I could care less about the case. I'm more I'm more like the actors. Colin Firth is so good.
There are a couple, but what the issue is, there's a documentary about the crime, then not long after, it's the exact same thing, just a dramatic reenactment.
Yeah.
And it's like, why is that necessary? Like that lady that, she was a corrections officer in a prison, and
yes,
she runs away with a murderer.
Yeah.
There was a documentary about them, and then almost immediately, dramatic reenactment. And like, I think the dramatic reenactments are usually they play pretty fast and loose. But I guess they have to,
because it's
they don't always have all
you're taking artistic liberties.
Yeah, which is fine, whatever. It's just annoying when like there's a documentary and immediately because they think they did one with Tiger King.
My issue, they did, yes, because people were calling for David Spade to play him, and he didn't. And I forget who it was.
I forget who it was too.
It was some unknown guy, or like a lesser.
And wasn't it like who played Carol Baskins? Was it like Kate McKinnon?
Kate McKinnon, yes, it was Kate McKinnon that played Carol Baskins.
But because I watched the thing about Pam. That one was good, but I don't think there was a documentary. Like I think that came long after. Candy, the one with Jessica Biel, I don't think there was.
I don't think there was
a documentary. At least not like it was older. If there was, like it had been. That case had sat for a while before somebody.
Well, I would much rather see a dramatic reenactment
than a one-sided Netflix documentary.
Than a documentary, one-sided or not. Because my issue is we don't make documentary films anymore in terms of true crime. We make documentary series, and the issue, and we've said it on this show before, the issue with almost every docu-series is it is 8 episodes long, and
it could be
5 to 6 of those episodes do not matter. You are just rehashing already given information, or you're adding the most minute, unnecessary details.
Or like a side tangent.
Or a side story,
a
whatever.
Family member.
Like episode 1 matters, half of episode 2 is decent, or all episode 2 is decent, and the next episode that matters and is actually good is maybe episode 7 and episode 8. And the rest of it is just garbage.
I watched one that was like a girl had gone missing, I don't know, like 10 years ago or something, and the documentarian, it was like over the span of a long time that she was working with the family. And you really thought that the way they were presenting it was that like they had some pretty decent leads to believe that like she just ran away to another town. Because there was like sightings and, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
This stupid thing ends with them saying like, we have no idea what happened to her and we probably never will. I'm like, why did you make this?
Yeah.
It was all just so pointless. Like she did not do anything for that family. There was not like, in the end, everyone sort of like came to terms with it. Nothing. It was just, everybody just felt the same as they did at the start.
I think, too, I did talk about how, like, any crime that's ever happened, they'll make a documentary out. I actually am walking that back. I don't think that's true. And I think that's the issue. Because look at, like, I loved McMillions.
Oh, yeah, that one was good.
It was very good. No one is dead. I don't think.
Well, no, it's just that's a financial crime.
I couldn't remember if someone got murdered.
No,
I didn't think so. Or if someone even died.
I think
accident.
I think there was some like threat of violence,
but there was definitely
somehow,
a threat. There was definitely a threat of violence.
I don't think someone did die, but I don't think that was relevant.
But like McMillions is great. Had nothing to do with it. Firefest, great.
Oh yeah.
No one's dead. There's been other ones that we've watched. I forget what they are. But even the ones that are about murder or someone is dead. No one is dead in Tiger King except for her husband.
Right. It's the threat of death.
Also, I thought was very entertaining.
Oh yeah.
The Abducted in Plain Sight. No one's dead in that one. Entertaining. And what you need to be doing, if you're going to make it about death, in my mind, move on to crimes that are not death related. Because they're, more interesting at this point.
Yeah, and
because the death ones are essentially what people talk about every episode of Dateline is. It's a marriage gone wrong. It's a boyfriend and a girlfriend. It's a father. It's whatever. It's always someone very obvious right at the very beginning. Like, oh, they're the murderer.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Why do we love Dateline? Because of Keith Morrison. If you're going to continue making these, you need to make them about outlandish shit. Tiger King was good because it was outrageous.
Yeah.
Like him talking about
other ones,
talking about that guy died, and then like, oh, whenever I was really sad, he would just drag his balls across my face, or whatever the fuck his story was at a funeral where that kid's mom is there, and that kid was not gay. He was like gay for heroin or whatever they had, crystal meth. Like,
yeah, it was just absurd. But the other ones I was thinking of was I can't remember what her name is. Elizabeth something.
Elizabeth Smart?
No, she's the teacher. Where she's developing that blood app.
Elizabeth Holmes?
Is that her name?
I think so.
Where like Amanda Seyfried played her.
Yeah.
They did like a reenactment, which wasn't terrible. And there was that other one, Inventing Anna, where she pretends to be like a New York heiress, and she's not. Those were interesting because, again, they're fraud crimes. And it's just like, I watched the one, Apple Cider Vinegar, which wasn't very good, but the crime piece of it, she claims she cured cancer by eating better, which was bullshit. She never had cancer in the first place. But like, those are very interesting because I think fraud, it's fascinating how people can get away with this. The same with that, like Holmes, where she's making this app that's like very clearly not working and is never going to work.
Yeah.
And she knows that. Like, she dropped out of college or something. I think the reenactment was actually called Dropout.
Well, even in terms of, like, McMillions, that was not only interesting because of being such a public thing like the McDonald's Monopoly scam.
And you'd never heard of it.
It was interesting because a lot of the people involved were very outrageous people.
And they were so honest.
And if they weren't
you assume they're being
honest.
They
weren't outrageous, you had like the guy at the FBI who started all of it was like, I'm working at the FBI office in Florida and I'm bored out of my fucking mind. Like, it's nothing.
Yeah, and someone slips him like a post-it
There's
note.
no work here. And then it's like a post-it about, well, he kept trying to like get bigger and bigger stories and bigger cases to work. And everyone's like, stop it. And then someone called in the tip line that like, oh, there's a big scam happening with the McDonald's Monopoly.
Yeah.
And they just pass it to him like, here you go. You want more important things? Here's your more important thing. And it was kind of like a pass off, like, go keep yourself busy kind of thing, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and then it exploded.
And then it turns into like this huge story.
But the more I've been, because I consume tons of true crime, but like, I've really been liking the fraud ones a lot more.
Yeah.
And
that's what I mean. There's only so much you can do.
They have more going on too, because like, obviously, like the financial frauds and like all that kind of stuff, like it takes time. So those documentaries tend to be better because like they do have enough info for
Yeah.
more than 3 episodes.
Well, in terms of dramatic reenactments, too, to go back to that subject, the other reason I would much prefer them to documentaries, not only because
They're
of
shorter.
the acting and like the content being spread out better to make more sense for a series, is because most of the time your dramatic reenactment is better than the documentary in terms of, for my sake, entertainment.
Yeah.
Because you will not see.
It's more cohesive, too.
You will not see a better thing for OJ than the People versus OJ Simpson. That series,
and I don't think there is.
30 for 30, they did one.
Yeah, but
There's that new one coming out. There's tons of documentaries about the OJ Simpson trial.
But you won't get. Well, I guess technically you could because it was televised.
Yeah.
So.
But you're not getting that show. Gave you behind the scenes stuff
Yeah.
that you weren't getting on TV. And how much of it is real, how much of it isn't, I don't know. But it was entertaining.
I mean,
Sarah Paulson was so good in it. And
at the time, everyone was still alive. Well,
Yeah.
Except for Robert Kardashian.
and Johnny Cochran.
Oh, so, but I think there was enough people like.
But the woman, who was the woman?
Nicole Brown Simpson?
No, the one that Sarah Paulson played. The other attorney.
Oh, Marsha Clark.
Yes, she's still alive.
Yeah.
The guy Sterling K. Brown played is, I'm pretty sure.
So,
still
like,
alive.
I'm sure there were.
OJ was still alive.
Right, but he wasn't consulted, I'm sure. There may have been other people from that firm that could give
corroborate things, yes.
But they didn't give you a ton of backstory on.
Well, they weren't giving you like.
They did on
backgrounds of the
Marsha
people.
Clark. They gave a lot on her.
But it wasn't like full blown like backstories.
No,
it was
not
a lot.
so
It
much
was
personal,
more.
Yeah.
While you watched it on TV, you were seeing what was happening in the courtroom. That show gave you a lot more of like, here's what was happening at the
In the law,
attorney's offices.
in the law firms, yeah.
And like what was happening in the back rooms and stuff like that, and the deals they were trying to make and the evidence they were trying to collect and like that.
Well, and how
aspect of
who did they take to OJ's house? The jury? Remember they took
Yes.
and like they like whitewashed his whole house, or
Yeah.
they like essentially blackwashed his whole house.
Yeah.
Like they changed so much in his house
Yes.
to give the jury like a different impression. If whoever they took, I don't remember if it
I'm
was.
pretty sure it was the jury.
It was something crazy, but which like you probably didn't get in the
No.
TV coverage at the time.
In reality, you should have. But probably not.
Well, I don't know.
Well, it was court TV. But I mean, that's part of the court proceeding if you're taking the jury there.
But I don't, yeah, and I don't know. Like, maybe it was included, but maybe not because, like, technically that was her house. I'm like, that was the crime scene, but it wasn't. It was out front of her house, or out front of, what was the guy? I always forget his
Ron
name.
Goldman.
Yeah, or was at his house. It was at in the doorway of one of their homes.
I don't remember.
I can't remember.
I really just remember the names and the white Bronco.
Yeah.
That's really all I remember from that whole thing. And I remember that was the first time in the O.J. Simpson series, the People vs. O.J. Simpson, was the first time that FX like just dropped the F-bomb on a show that wasn't on after like 11 o'clock.
I thought they did on The Walking Dead.
No, that was AMC.
Oh.
Also. But no, remember, they didn't on AMC. I mean, if they did, it was after the fact. Because that was around the season when they're at that train yard. And in the comics, they do that super badass line where they get locked in the train car. And when they're going to escape, Rick says to everybody else, like, they're going to, whatever the lead-in is, but it's like they're going to learn they're fucking with the wrong people. But in the show, since it aired on TV, even though it was premium cable,
because
they're messing with the wrong people, and everyone's like, boo.
They could.
But that's when it became known of like, well, AMC put out like you get 2 swear words a season or whatever.
Right.
Like they changed their policy it was revealed on Talking Dead or wherever they talked about it, that their policy at AMC changed, and you got two big
Was it
swears.
because of O.J. Simpson?
I think it was just because they were moving, things in the industry were moving, because it was also the conversation of technically networks like that, you can be cursing all the time because you have to pay for that channel on cable.
Right,
But
they just don't.
sponsors,
Yeah,
they don't.
Yeah.
And that was the time where FX had started to make, like, screw it. We're just going to start using this language. Later times, like not in the middle of the afternoon.
Right.
Because when it happened on OJ, it's like the first episode of the second episode. And she's sitting in her backyard and she gets whatever newspaper headline about the trial.
Yeah.
And she's just like, motherfucker.
Yeah.
And
But isn't that like,
that's the end.
Yeah.
Like,
right
that's
at
the
end.
last line of the episode.
Yeah. Yes.
But it blew everybody's minds. Because, like, it wasn't censored. There was no, you didn't see, like, a ton of articles on the internet about, like, oh, the People vs. O.J. Simpson is about to drop an F-bomb on TV on Sunday. Like, there was no warning of it. It just happened.
Well, and even, like, the scene, you're not...
It's very, yeah,
you know,
it's just her in her backyard.
There's about to be, like, drama of some kind, but, like, you don't have any indication.
You know it's about to end with a bombshell.
You just don't realize that the bombshell is going to be the fact that she just flat out...
Well, the bombshell in terms of the show is what she's seeing in the
The
bombshell
OJ,
in terms of the real world is her just dropping the F-bomb.
Sometimes no other word can convey what you want to say.
Well, it's also hilarious that, I don't know if we talked about it on here.
Did they lose sponsorship because they said it?
Probably not, because they continued to say it in other episodes.
And, like, that show was huge.
And more than once. I'm pretty sure there's an episode where they say, like, the F word 2 or 3 times. Because that was the big thing, was, like, with AMC, it was that you could use 2 big curse words.
Well, that's the biggest one, right?
But you could, because on regular TV, you can say, like, bitch and shit or whatever.
Right, but you can't say God damn it.
You can say God damn it, but they'll censor the word God.
Right. And you can't say asshole, they'll censor ass. They'll censor hole.
Which is so hilarious to me.
I don't understand that one.
But, like, yeah, you couldn't, so you can say whatever, I forget what is allowed on TV, but you can't say fuck. I don't think
you can say the C word either.
I don't think you can say cunt.
Yeah, or people just don't. I don't know. Maybe that's just so weird.
No, you definitely can't. Because you also can't say the N word.
Well, sure. That's a little different.
Well, I don't know. Because there are shows that I've seen use it. And then I've seen now, retrospectively, it's censored. Which is very strange.
Well,
but
isn't it sort of different? Like, obviously on a sitcom, you're not just going to have someone drop that word. But, like, if it was a show where, like...
Well, it's usually not sitcoms either. It's dramas.
Yeah, where, like, for whatever reason, like, that's the word that would have been used. Whether it's, like...
Yeah. It's usually, like, racist cops.
Or, like...
Or...
Like, 2 black guys saying it to each other, where, like, that's... In the context of the show, that's the word. For them to not use it would be inaccurate. Do they use it then? Or do they...
I don't remember.
Do they not? Just because, like, we all know this is what would be said.
I don't remember the specific times I've heard the N word on TV.
No, I don't.
They're not.
Like, I feel like in The Wire they used it.
Oh, I'm sure, but that was on HBO, so it didn't matter.
And that was a long time ago, too. I don't know, like, if that would have changed now.
Well, it wouldn't. It's on HBO.
But, like, would they still use it?
Oh, 100%. HBO.
They could.
Shows that are on networks like that, they don't care. Like, if you choose not to use it, where, like, historically or whatever it would have been used, it's because of, like, the network you're on and censoring and the FCC and all that shit. It's not a matter of, like, oh, we're choosing not to use this.
Yeah. But I think that one's a little different. Like, yes, it's a curse word, but it's also, like, that's a derogatory term.
Yes.
It's a little different.
When it's too...
From just saying, like, fuck you.
Well, I wonder, too, because there's that whole thing where I always knew the swearing rule for PG-13 versus rated R was you could say the F word once in a PG-13 movie. And then later on, I was turned on to this idea that And I don't know if it changed or if it was always that way, and I just didn't know that element, because I learned that in the movie Get Shorty or whatever.
Wasn't Beetlejuice that way?
Well, it is. That was the rule. Like, Get Shorty, they're trying to make a movie. So it makes you aware that you can say it this many times in a movie before it gets turned rated R or whatever. Beetlejuice, and that's real. Beetlejuice says it once, and it's still rated PG-13.
Yeah.
And if they said it again, it would have been rated R. But then there was the thing that I don't know if it changed to this, or if that was an aspect that's not addressed, was the whole thing of, like, you can use it more than once, but not in a sexual nature.
Oh.
Because the F word can be used so versatily.
Right, so you could say fuck you more than
that,
once.
like, yeah, like if you were doing that, you could say that, and it wasn't like you could use it as much as you want. You
Right.
could still only use it once or maybe twice if it wasn't used in a sexual way. But if it was used in a sexual way, you could only use it once or whatever. So that was something I don't know if that, like I said, I don't know if that changed over time or if that was always like that and that movie just dumbed it down to you can only say it once.
Or if, like, networks just went with once, regardless of context, because it was easier. Oh, there's that market. Well.
Stop smoking time. There was another thing I was just thinking of, and I forgot what it was. In terms of swearing. Oh, well, it's like, I don't know if we talked about it on here, where I said to you about, I saw that article that Americans were, like, trying to get Apple TV to release a version of Ted Lasso without all
Oh,
the
yeah.
swearing.
Uh-huh.
And the article talked, yeah, because it was essentially, there were American audiences who were petitioning Apple to release the entirety of Ted Lasso without the swearing in it. And the article basically said, like, it is weird, but it's not that weird. And it's not that weird, especially when you consider that the majority of that show are English people. And the whole show itself is set in the UK.
Right.
That swearing in America is very different from swearing in literally every other country.
Well, I think especially in the UK, they're very, like...
Yeah.
And Ireland, I think.
A lot of European countries are like that. I don't understand why, in general, we in America are, like, so puritanical about everything. It's so strange to me. The FCC is a fucking joke.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it started somewhere.
Ronald Reagan, probably.
Well, probably somewhere in the 80s, I would imagine.
As much as I fall back on that, it's usually true. I'll look it up when we get home. It's usually true that all the dumb shit that happens to us in America now is because of Ronald Reagan. It's either Reagan or Nixon. Nixon's another big one.
Well, and I feel like when it comes to, like, the purity stuff.
It was Nancy.
Yeah.
That's where the DARE program comes from.
Like
that failed
that
miserably.
Type of conservative.
Yeah, came from Nancy Reagan, the true president at that time.
Yeah, pretty much.
I do want to watch that too. That was on Showtime though. We don't have Showtime anymore. I did want to watch that docuseries. And I still want to watch. Speaking of People vs. O.J. Simpson, I want to watch American Crime Story.
Oh, impeachment. Because that's Clinton, right?
It's Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, and she was a consultant. Or no, yes,
Yeah.
She was a consultant on that. There was something else involving that, and she wasn't a consultant, and it was a big deal. I forget what it was. There was something else made about that scandal, and she was not consulted in any way, shape, or form. But Ryan Murphy consulted her for. I think she was an executive producer.
She wrote a book which was really bad. I couldn't get through it. So hopefully that doesn't have anything to do with the show.
Well, like with the FCC, I don't think I showed it to you. Dan Povenmire for those of you that don't know, he is the co-creator of Phineas and Ferb.
And Hamster and Gretel.
Hamster and Gretel, Milo, Murphy's Law. But he worked on Family Guy. He worked on a bunch of different shows, but one of them that he worked on was Family Guy. And there was a whole video he put up the other day where they do that song about, like, the fellas at the freaking FCC. And it's the premise of the episode is Peter starts his own television show out of his garage, and it gets put on public access. But he's doing whatever he wants. And then Lois thinks, like, it's not a morally upstanding show. So she files a complaint to the FCC, and the FCC comes and starts to censor all his stuff. And then in the episode, they do a big musical number about all the hypocrisy and dumb shit that you can't do because of FCC rules. But then the shit that you can get away with because of it. And Dan Povenmire is in this reel telling the story about, like, here's like clips from the musical number, and like we wrote this whole thing, whatever. And there's like, he breaks down, like, these are jokes that they wouldn't allow, but then these, and like plays clips, like, this is stuff they were fine with. And like, one of the clips from the thing that was on TV is like Brian, Stewie, and Peter in bondage gear. And I don't remember if it's Brian spanking Stewie or Stewie spanking Brian.
Yikes.
But like, they allowed that on TV. But then some joke that he wrote was like, oh no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And it's like, so how does that make sense? Like, this was fine.
Well, it's no different from when
Which, granted, it does flash. That scene is not on long. And that's what he said. They wrote, because at the end of the song, when they're holding their long note, it flashes a bunch of different clips. And some of it, that was the point he made. Some of it was from old episodes of the show. And the big joke was, there was stuff from old episodes that they told us we could not put in here. But then there was newer stuff that was worse than that was allowed in. And when they told us, you have to take this out, we said, this already aired. This is from an episode that already aired on TV.
But is it the same, like, is the FCC also who, like, censor stuff for the radio?
I think so, yeah. It's all the FCC. The
Because
Federal Communications
a
Commission
big
or
thing that, like, you see sometimes, like, why is this word censored and not this?
Well, it was the whole controversy
Because,
on the
like,
radio with
skeet,
skeet,
motherfucker.
skeet.
So you just added more skeets, but clearly you don't know what that word means. So motherfucker is not allowed, and goddamn isn't allowed.
That was the big joke amongst black comedians.
Jizz
when that
all day
song
long,
came out.
just let it go.
I remember tons of black comedians when that song came out joking about, like, that song is popular and you're listening to the radio and it's just like, skeet, 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 skeet. And it's like, this is very evident that this is because these white people at radio stations don't know what that word means.
And, like, maybe you need to censor a lot more in that song than just the F word. I think that's probably the least, like, offensive part.
Yeah. Well, the F word and the goddamn part.
Right. Yeah, but how dare you? I mean, we could say till the sweat drops down my balls, no problem. But don't you dare say anything else.
Was that not censored on the show? I feel like it was.
No.
It had to have been.
No. Because I wouldn't have known that those were the words.
It had to have been. There's no way they allowed it to say till the sweat drops down my balls on the radio.
All these bitches crawl. Or whatever. I don't know if that's like the females. All these females.
Was it censored to females?
I think so.
Because it's not females in the original.
Oh, well, I could be wrong.
It's bitches.
No, I think it's females on the radio.
Yeah,
So,
the original is bitches. They had.
we'll have to check.
They may.
I don't think they did.
They may have just dropped the word balls.
I don't think so.
They could have done like till the sweat dropped down my, and then like it cuts, or it does that shit where they play it in reverse. Because when you hear them like rap, and a lot of rap,
you'll do
curse, it's played in reverse.
Yeah.
Well, it's the word. It's the word shit, but it's them. They isolate that word and it's played in reverse.
Uh-huh. And
Which
it sounds like a weird like warp.
Which I think was the point of that Missy Elliott song.
Probably.
Even though she's not saying words. I don't think.
No, I don't think so either.
Well, there was a fake revelation a couple years ago that
She was saying something in reverse.
no, it's that I put my thing down, flip it, and reverse it, and then what you heard next was just I put my thing down.
Oh.
It was that, but backwards, and I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case. I could be wrong, but
Yeah, I remember seeing that. But I think they do say it.
we'll have to look it up. I can't imagine they got away with saying the sweat drop down my
There's a
balls.
lot of weird things where it's like, you're clearly just listening for isolated words and you don't care about context.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Which, like, I'm not offended by it. I'm almost offended by what you do censor.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things. That's why my point is like, I know all they were doing for the radio, especially, is you're just looking for words.
Yeah.
So like, but how do you get away with the word balls? Like in any context, balls feels more aggressive to me than the F word. Like,
Because I don't know why I would have known that that's the words, because I would have just heard it on the radio.
well, Sandra Bullock said it. So
I knew the song long before that.
everyone knew the song long before that. That's the best rendition of that song.
It is very funny. I just watched that movie the other
I know
day.
you did. Just past the Monster Mile, as
Tony's
Tony
favorite.
points it out.
Where we didn't believe him.
No, well, he just said it. I'm like, what?
I'm like, is that what they call it?
Well, I knew that's what it was called, but like, where did you hear that?
And then when we asked him, he got so weird about it.
Well, no, I think I asked him if your dad told him that, because your parents go there. And he was like, no, it was Papa and Gigi. I'm like, no, it wasn't.
But he got real weird about it at first, like he thought he was in trouble.
Yeah, he did. He thought, because we were asking him. Well, we're like, no, you're not in trouble. We've
Like,
just
no,
literally, A, you've literally never said that. And B, no one in this car has ever said that as we passed Daytona.
No, because like I didn't even really.
Or not Daytona. I don't know why.
Dover.
I don't know why I said Daytona. I guess because Daytona just happened.
But I don't even know that I would know that that's what they call it. Like, I'm sure that I had heard that before, but like I wouldn't have thought that up in my own mind.
Yeah.
So when he said it, I'm like, what are you talking about?
Good on you, GMC. That's hysterical.
The car behind us or the other one?
No, there was a truck behind me who the truck in front of me was driving slow as shit and then got over and he tried to like fly up that guy's ass after riding my ass and couldn't get back over here. Even though the GMC that I said good on you, the GMC and that Toyota Tundra are driving like absolute assholes. Because I'm doing 80 and she flew past me, so she's doing at least 90.
They both did.
Yeah, they both did. And I'm not catching up to them.
Well, they're not going to get anywhere because there's a line of cars
They're
out
not.
there.
Traffic always picks up right around here, so. Trying to think of what else there is. I just finished, you finished it earlier, season 2 of.
Well, I just finished it too,
The White
just for
Lotus.
the second
Yeah, a
time.
little bit before me. But
I watched it a long time ago.
season 2?
Yeah, a long time ago.
When?
I don't know, like in the fall, maybe even over the summer.
Oh, I thought you just watched it.
No. I watched that, I think, first. That's when I watched like that.
Oh, you know what? I do
Little-
remember.
Little Fires Everywhere.
Yeah,
and
I do remember you talking about
I,
watching
like,
it. Yeah.
I blew through a ton of them.
Yeah. We won't started season 3 yet because it's episodically released, it's weekly released, and I don't care for that. With shows like that. Like,
Well, there's no reason to
No.
watch it weekly.
no, not on streaming.
We'll just wait till it's all out.
You liked it.
I liked it a lot.
I didn't hate it.
It's just very different from the first season.
I don't
That's
really
all.
know how I feel about it, but I did not hate it. It was not the worst thing I've ever seen on television. But I just think, I don't know. And I think part of the issue is that, of like, season 1 was different than season 2, but in the way of like, just structurally. Because season 1, like we said, was so cohesive. Everybody, all the characters interacted at some point. They were all like, their storylines kind of intertwined outside of just being at the same resort.
But I think
whereas
that's
like
why.
in season 2,
Because they were at like a...
they were all separate, basically. If anything overlapped, it was like one character. And then a lot of the times it overlapped, and it didn't matter that it overlapped.
No.
Like the guy from Divergent sleeping with that hooker. That did not matter. There was no drama there whatsoever. They like vaguely hint at the threat of her telling his wife, and then she never does. And just gives her the money. Doesn't leave her to the front desk like he said he was going to either. Just directly to her.
I think because they say the location plays a big part. So I think it was very Italian.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's very Italian for everything to just be just sort of like, whatever.
That's what I mean. It was just weird. It was just strange. It was strange, and I think part of it is I'm going into the mindset of it being it's the same people from season 1 in terms of like showrunners and writers and all that stuff. Different characters in season 2, but
I did watch the trailer for season 3. I just don't remember. I have to watch it again.
I haven't seen it.
I may have also just watched like a teaser where it didn't really show, because I really do not remember it at all.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I would assume someone's dead again, but like,
well, I think that too. We talked about that too. In season 1, they show you who the body is in episode 1, and the whole season is a question of how did he die and who kills him. Or do they show you that he gets shot?
I think you know he was shot to death. You just don't know who did it.
He was shot, yeah. And then it's a question of who did it. Whereas in this one, she hits that body in the water, but they don't tell you who the body is. So then you're spending not only the question of...
something's on fire, and there's a fire truck at it.
It's not only,
it stinks.
It's not only the question of who did it, it's a question of who is it.
Right, how did they die?
Who's the victim?
Because, like, you know they're in the water, but, like, you don't know.
Yeah, did they drown? Were they murdered and dumped there?
Yeah.
Like, it's a whole thing. And
I
feel like that made the show less dramatic.
It just took out... Because, like, when you watch season 1, like, everybody is a suspect. So you're just constantly like, who did it?
Yeah.
Whereas in this one, like, you can't
1,
do that because there's too many things to figure out.
My point too in season 1 was you knew who the body was, you knew how he was murdered, and then seeing everyone interact together and their storylines all being so intertwined, you could see how everyone had motive.
Well, right, each
Whereas
storyline.
In this one, they kind of gave you motive that it was going to be one of the 2 married dudes was going to be dead. Spoilers, obviously, I guess. They kind of, like, that storyline felt like, oh, the asshole from Divergent could be dead, or Aubrey Plaza's husband could be dead,
I thought
or
it was going to
Aubrey
be one
Plaza
of... Well, you knew it wasn't.
could be dead.
Yeah, I thought maybe it was Aubrey Plaza.
And then, like, there's not really a threat in any of the F. Murray Abraham and his family.
No. Unless,
and if it was his body, it would have been from, like, stupidity. Like, it felt like there was no threat of any of them dying.
I wondered, too, like, if someone committed suicide.
You knew it wasn't the concierge lady, because she's the one who was there when they found the body.
Mm-hmm.
And you knew it wasn't any of the hotel staff, because they were there when they found the body. So you knew it had to have been a guest. Then at some point, I asked you and questioned, like, is this going to be some fucking nobody from the background? Because that's really going to piss me off.
But they wouldn't have done that.
No, and it wasn't. Well, I could have seen that because the show is a weird, like, it's a drama, but it's also a farce, and it's kind of a spoof. Like, it's kind of all in these different lanes. So I could have seen that happening, but it didn't. And then I feel like, too, because you don't know who the body is, you don't know who the murderer is, you don't know how they died, So it's what, 7 episodes? Episode 2 feels a bit more high octane because of you're coming off of episode 1. But then episodes 3 through 6 feel like they do not matter. And then episode 7, you know it's the end.
No.
So it feels more again because you know, like, oh, we're wrapping this up.
Once you get the storyline with the gays, things start to.
But even then,
it doesn't happen quickly, but things.
But even
start
then,
to change.
I think it's so subtle what they're planting that you don't really think about it until after. Like, I had a lot of revelations after it was over.
Yeah.
Because
he sits down and he says, like, I would have done anything for him, and the sad thing is, I still would.
I knew it was her husband. I knew the second he said, "Oh, I fell in love with this American cowboy," he was straight, and I would have done anything for him, and I did, and I still will. Like, I knew it was her husband, 100%. I knew then and there, this is what's happening. They're trying to kill her. They kept mentioning that prenup. Like, they were both clearly miserable. He leaves all of a sudden from Italy for 2 days. Like, I knew it. And it was hilarious asking you, like, is this what happens? And you're like, oh, no.
It was, like, I remember.
It's all a red herring. And I'm like, no, it's not.
When I watched the first time, like, it's all there, but it's not, like, overly obvious. Like,
well, I don't need it to be. But I think in terms of a show like that, if you're not going to tell me who the dead body is or even how they were killed, you kind of need to be a bit more obvious.
No,
to keep me invested.
They want it to be they want you to be surprised. It's like it's a murder mystery.
They only wanted you to be surprised because who the victim is.
Mm-mm.
Yes.
Well, yeah, but like that was the whole point of the whole. That's why they didn't say who it was in the beginning.
I'm aware of that. But my point is, in season 1, that concierge guy was nobody when that show came out. So it didn't matter. And in terms of the show, he's just the concierge. In terms of the White Lotus as a whole series, again, I said spoiler earlier, Jennifer Coolidge matters.
Well, if you've seen the trailer for season 3, you already know she's not in it. So you could assume that she's dead.
No, not necessarily. Which I did say to you, I think that's the only reason they killed her, is because she didn't want to do season 3, or they didn't write her a character in season 3. And it's like, well, if we're not going to put her in more of these, we're going to have to kill her, because people will be really mad if we don't continue.
Well, or it was just a matter of, like, your character we can't keep... You can't keep showing up at all these resorts where people die. Like, the first one...
I just got to the final episode and was mad. I was very mad at the end show because I hated her assistant. I despised Jennifer Coolidge's assistant. I could not stand her. I wanted her to be the dead body so bad.
She didn't matter, so you knew it wasn't
I was so frustrated at the son. I wasn't frustrated at. I was frustrated, like, for him, I guess. Because he was getting played by that hooker. And, like, it was so obvious he was getting played by that hooker. And that was kind of the hilarity of that storyline, is he's all, like, they really make it a point that he's so feminist and he's so pro-women and, like, men are assholes and men are the worst and down with the patriarchy, and then you're getting played by a hooker. Like, she knows you're a fucking dipshit and she's just playing you for money, and you bought right into it.
Well,
and then...
Well, I think that was sort of... I don't know, maybe...
Well, that's why I think she got so much press. Because she's the best character in season 2. She's the hero of season 2.
The hooker?
The hooker. Both hookers. I think.
I don't think there is a hero.
Yeah, those two. And every line that was for F. Murray Abraham. Because every line that comes out of his mouth is hysterical. F. Murray Abraham is to season 2 what Steve Zahn was to season 4. Like, it's the same.
Irrelevant.
No. The funniest character on the show.
Yeah, and the most irrelevant.
I think when we talked about this, with Jennifer Coolidge, I think what's most frustrating about her character is I equated it, it's not anywhere near the same level, but I equated it to Vince Gilligan talking about the final seasons of Breaking Bad, where he's writing a show where your main hero in season 1, by the end of even like season 2 or 3, is the villain. Whatever season he watches Jesse's girlfriend die.
I think it's the second.
I think it's season 2. He is the villain. And then you watch him become more and more and more of a monster. And by the end of the series, he is like the personification of evil. And yet, people were still rooting for him to win. And Vince Gilligan didn't know how to make sense of that. I think White Lotus is the same thing.
She definitely was not the hero.
From season 1, episode 1, but that's the difference. From season 1, episode 1, well, no, she's not a villain in season 1, episode 1. She's just like a ditzy idiot. And then you very quickly find out, oh no, she's a piece of shit. Not only is she dumb, she's a piece of shit. So she's not the hero. She's not necessarily the villain, but she's not a good guy. She's a bad guy.
Yeah.
But they write her character to be kind of like likable.
Yeah.
Or at least tolerable. And then it's the same thing in season 2. In season 2, it's worse because they kind of make you feel bad for her.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Like, they really give her a lot of sympathy in season 2. And then you find out, not until the last 2 episodes, that the whole plot is to kill her.
Right.
And finding out in the last 2 episodes feels like a true crime documentary where 4 of these episodes didn't matter. Except for, like, one storyline. So the equivalent of 20 minutes of an episode mattered. And the rest of it didn't. But you find out the plot is to have her killed. Okay. But you're still rooting for her. And then she gets her big heroic moment of murdering 3 people. And you're over the moon because they made you feel so bad for her. And then instead of just climbing down the ladder right next to the boat to get on the boat and leave, she tries to jump over the side, falls, hits her head, and dies. And it's like, this was fucking stupid.
Well, and I told you, I think it's because, like, that was her character.
Yeah,
smart enough to figure out that she's about to be murdered, but helpless enough that she can't figure out how to get in that boat.
I understood it. I just I wasn't happy about it. It also felt very rushed. The ending felt very rushed to me.
Well, and
I think it's because
I think it was to build down that, like, anxiety of her, like.
Well, I think too
because she figured out it did happen quickly from when she figures out. I think it's.
Well, I think she figures it out. She's starting to figure it out beforehand when she sees the two of the uncle and the nephew, quote unquote, fucking each other.
Well, she knows.
I
like,
think that's
something.
when she starts to figure out, like, oh, something's up.
Right. Yeah.
And then she sees that picture of her husband.
Yes.
Even then, she's too dumb. Where she's like, it can't be him. He has hair. Which, like, that picture's how fucking old.
Well, and like. Because she says, like, she thought it was a dream. Because, like, she takes a lot of pills. She takes a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
So that's another, like, piece of it. Like, she's not really sure what reality is. Because she's a bit out of touch.
Yeah.
For a variety of reasons.
I don't know. It just felt... I think the final episode felt very rushed, too. And I think it felt rushed because of the fact of, like... It felt like the majority of that season didn't matter. Well, like, Aubrey Plaza, that whole storyline goes through all this drama for no payoff. And maybe I'm just an idiot and I'm not reading into the subtlety enough and I'm not appreciating the writing or the acting or whatever, but, like, I felt like that storyline was a whole build-up to just get the rug pulled out from under you on absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I don't really know. I guess it's just a show, like, oh, this is just different people.
Like, the Hooker storyline paid off. Because you do get confirmation, because they don't ever flat out tell you, like, you're being played.
No.
Like, they keep alluding to it, and the dad and the grandfather keep telling him, like, she's a hooker. Like, what is this? I didn't believe her when she said there was a pimp. I think I kind of believed that it was him being played. But the way it was written,
I forgot
they
that,
really left it up to a big question mark of, like, is he being played?
I think if you pay very, very close attention, I think at the beginning when you first see those two girls, I think they do greet that guy. Because, like, at the end, the guy who plays her pimp is, like, the doorman. And they pass him. And she hugs him. I think in the very beginning, they do the same thing.
The
I think
doorman where?
like, they're walking by that... It's like a store.
Well, she's coming out of a building and says, like, goodbye to somebody, but I don't know if they even show his face. Maybe if I went back and
if
looked
you
at
really
it
look.
might be.
Because at the end, like, they make it very obvious that, like, there's her pimp, and she goes over and, like, hugs him and says thank you.
Yes.
And he's wearing, like, a uniform.
Yeah.
It's like a green vest or green shirt or something.
Yeah. Like I said,
so I think you may...
Like I said, I never
it's
believed...
so quick. It's
well,
so
they
quick.
also, not only in terms of her pimp, they wrote her character to kind of have that, like, you could have seen her falling in love with it.
Right.
And then either leaving to go to LA or something. Like, you could have seen almost a reform. And I think because they juxtaposed her with her friend, who was not a hooker, but then, like, very quickly transformed into being a hooker.
Yeah.
A hooker for power more for money than money.
Right,
but,
she
like,
was using it for position.
Yes.
Basically.
But, like, it was the equivalence of she was all in on being a prostitute, her friend wasn't. And then by episode 2 or 3, they kind of flip. At least in writing-wise, they kind of flip. Where she starts to question, like, oh, we're all going to burn at the end for this. Like, there's that weird religious aspect for a hot second.
Yeah.
Where she's, like, afraid of going to hell. And then her friend is like, I'm all in. I'm going to just fuck everybody to get where I want. Like,
yeah.
So they kind of did right. And that's why I said, like, that was the best storyline in the show. Because that was, in my opinion, the best written storyline of the season.
Well, and they have a lot of... Because then you also wonder, like, did she drug that piano player on purpose?
No, I don't think she did. I think that is a matter of her friend has a ton of pills, Viagra being one of them, and then Molly being one of them. Like, she has tons of stuff. So she thought she was grabbing Viagra. Because she looks shocked when it's like like, she genuinely looks when they fire the piano player and give her the job.
But, like...
She looks very genuinely like, holy shit.
Maybe. But, like, maybe she's just really good at...
Nah, but yeah, I think they would have really emphasized it more in the final episode. I think they would have made it very more, like, apparent. Like, oh no, she drugged that guy on purpose.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, maybe.
Because the final episode is where they kind of dropped the subtlety.
Yeah.
The final episode was where it's all like, here it is. But they also don't ever answer, like, to go back to Aubrey Plaza's thing. They don't ever fully tell you, did she have sex with that guy from Divergent? Did her husband and his wife have sex on that island? They heavily allude to that. Like, they don't ever flat out tell you that, yes, they both cheated on each other.
Well, I guess the whole...
And they don't really ever tell you why they invited them to go there. I didn't like that they really emphasized in episode 1, like, why are we here? Why did they invite us? We don't hang out with them any other time. And there's never a payoff to that. Like, it's not only, like, oh, the subtlety, whatever. There is a lot of questions that get brought up that I feel like do not get answered.
Just with their storyline, though.
But yeah, that's what I mean. Their storyline was absolutely pointless. Because I kept wondering, like, oh, he goes up to put his bathing suit on. She's in the bathroom with the door wide open. He makes it a point to step into the bathroom doorway view. And it's just like swinging dick to change into his bathing suit. And I'm like, oh, this is like a weird swingers thing.
Well,
That's what they invited them for. But then that gets, like, immediately discarded. And then it's, oh, I deal with employment law. And then he's like, oh, I got all these employees that are a real pain in my ass. And I'm like, so now it's you invited them here because his wife is an employment attorney. And that gets pushed aside. Like, there's just a lot of weird, like, we raise the question of why are we here, and then we never answer it.
Well, maybe they're supposed to be the redirect storyline of, like...
But then I don't know, because, like, was that the point? Because you do that whole thing where his wife is like, oh, I know he cheats on me and I cheat on him. These aren't his kids. They're my trainers. So, like, was that the whole point of you inviting them? Was because you wanted to fuck his wife and she then wanted to fuck him? Because you have that conversation about, like, oh, did you guys ever have threesomes in college or orgies or whatever? And he's like, no, if I had a crush on a girl, he got there first.
Yeah.
It's because he was jealous of my status. And I'm like, oh, you didn't have a higher status than me. Well, maybe not then, but I do now. So
Right.
I could see that being the case of, like, that was the whole reasoning, was your roommate from college, who was a total dork in college, is now more important than you. And you used to get girls from him and have sex with them to kind of be like a fuck you to him.
Yeah, maybe.
So that could have been the answer to that question, but there again, they don't, like, definitively tell you, yes, they had
They
sex.
just leave it open-ended. But, I mean...
Well, they're at the airport and then they're all happy. They were miserable for 2 episodes. And, like, the couple that cheats on each other, they're all the same they've been the entire show. They're just kissing on each other and, like, acting like they've been the entire series. And then Aubrey Plaza and her husband, who were miserable, are now back to, like, smiling and kissing each other. And it's, like, this whole weird thing of, like,
well, the
did
blonde...
cheating on each other save your marriage? Like, what the fuck
blonde
happened?
wife says, like, you
do whatever you have to.
You do whatever it takes to, like,
Be
get
happy.
over it or
Yeah.
whatever. So maybe, like, they just realized, like, we're just gonna adopt that. Like, maybe they were right. And, like, I don't know.
That's what I mean. It's just strange. Because then they also do that whole thing of Aubrey Plaza, like, she's clearly so left-wing, and then the blonde woman and guy from Divergent are not only, they're not really right-wing, they're not politically aligned anywhere.
Right, they're just...
But they're like,
Yeah.
oh, we don't watch the news, and they're clearly in the lane of, like, we have so much money, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And then Aubrey Plaza and her husband are like, we have money, but we're, like, philanthropists, and we donate to
Well, like,
charity, and we
but
have these
also, like, they haven't
organizations that-
they have new money. Like, they're not...
But then it becomes, well, so is he.
But he's had money longer.
Yes.
Because this guy, they allude to the fact that, like, he got rich right out of college.
But it kind of then alludes to, like, is that the wrap-up for your story, is you're just like them now?
I guess.
Like, the rich always act the way they do? Is that the message I'm supposed to get from Aubrey Plaza?
Or, like, I guess 'cause
character?
they ask, like, has he changed? And she says, like, no, not at all. And, like, maybe
Well, they
now,
harp a lot on that.
maybe now it's like, oh,
They harp
let's
a lot
just
on
let
that.
the money change.
Because it's
I
the
don't know.
whole...
I mean, none of that is a positive.
It's
but
the whole, like,
it's
why didn't you call me and we could have did insider trading? Well, that's illegal. And he's like, oh, well, it's not a big deal. Like, you don't have to tell anybody. And they keep asking him about, like, that whole thing. They're asking him about all this different stuff. And there's all these side conversations between the 2 husbands and Aubrey Plaza and the blonde one about, like, their marriage being different. He watches porn more than he has sex with her. And, like, it's all this different stuff. That's how it read to me. Was their storyline wraps up with, like, their marriage was miserable, and the way they saved it was they're just going to start cheating on each other.
I guess. What
I
is
don't
this
know.
person doing? You need to relax. You're going to get in an accident.
Smoking out the window.
It reeks like a skunk, too.
That's what I just said.
Whatever.
All right. Well, I'm noticing that we're about an hour 20, so that'll be good for an episode. Hope you enjoyed our
bumpy ride?
bumpy ride, our camera adjustments, our White Lotus season 2 recap, our true crime.
Next up will be 9 Perfect Strangers.
This episode was really, we talked a lot about true crime. I think the chunk of this episode is our breakdown of true crime and what it is today.
Gotta go find those fraud documents.
And Instagram posts. That was how we started.
Well, because, like, those posts feel so, like,
Yeah, well, we did.
true
It had a
crime-y.
natural progression
Yeah.
into the
That's
true
what they
crime
seem
thing.
like.
And then just to cap it off, I talked about the fact that we watched White Lotus.
And now we're watching 9 Perfect Strangers.
And now we're
well,
watching
you are.
9.
I watched it already.
Yes, I'm catching up. We're watching 9 Perfect Strangers. Those episodes.
I want to read it. Maybe I'll read it while we watch it.
Yeah. I can probably watch those at night after everybody goes to bed. We'll see what happens. But thank you for joining us. Follow us on social media. Follow, if you're listening to this, check us out on YouTube. If you're watching this, subscribe to our podcast on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. We will be back next week in a different format than this, obviously. But
Or it will be a very short episode because we're not going on any long car ride.
yeah, well, I wouldn't do it with the kids in the car either.
That would be a nightmare.
Yes, because Tony, they go through their ups and downs, but there's a lot of times where if we're having a conversation, one of them has to butt in, and it's usually Tony. Like, oh, you're having a conversation? Well, I have a question to ask you, and it's going to take me 45
I
minutes
have a
to
question,
ask you.
but by question I mean I need to tell you a story. And he starts his story over every time he can't remember the rest of it.
Well, by question, I mean, yes, I'm going to restart. If I get interrupted, or if I forget, I'm going to restart. But
It's so dramatic.
I'm 5 years old, so I have to do like a lot, like it's a lot of stuttering and bumbling and like just get on with it. We've been doing this for 30 minutes. Just get it out of your mouth already. But yeah, so we'll be back next week. Back to our... Well, actually, no. We haven't done our new setup yet.
Nope.
We haven't recorded since we moved the furniture.
Yeah, we have.
No, we have not.
Yeah, we have. We
Where?
didn't have the thing behind it. We did it once that way.
I don't think we did.
Yeah, I think we did one. And then you said
I don't think we did.
you wanted to put something behind.
No, we were going to record.
You had the thing already written up at that time, though. And you wrote a thing up to set behind us.
Yes, but we didn't record.
Yeah, because the phone wasn't. But we had done one already.
I'll have to look. I don't think we did. I'll look. I could be wrong,
I think we did one.
but I don't think we did. But anyways, thanks for joining us. We will see you all next week, wherever you're listening or watching. Well, you're watching on YouTube. We love you, and as always, thank you for being a friend.